Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world that smelled faintly of soap, smoke, and boiled cabbage. The life of a Victorian maid. You're about to experience what it's like to wake up before dawn, long before the sun decides to clock in. And trust me, you wouldn't last a week here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where and when you're listening from. It's always such a joy knowing someone, somewhere in the quiet of their night, is drifting off to this same whisper. Now, imagine this. It's still dark. The kind of dark that presses against your eyelids even when they're open. The clock in the hallway groans its metallic sigh, 4:30 a.m., and that's your cue. You're not just up early. You belong to the morning before it even happens. The house is still, like it's holding its breath. But you can't. You've got fires to light, shoes to polish, and water to haul from a pump that wheezes louder than your lungs will by noon. You move like a ghost. Except less glamorous ghosts at least don't have to scrub chamber pots. The air bites your skin as you pull on your dress, stiff with yesterday's starch. No heating, no cozy robe moment, no quick scroll through social media while sipping coffee. Just the sound of your own heartbeat and maybe, if you're lucky, the crackle of a coal-catching flame. You tiptoe down the narrow servants' stairs, the ones deliberately built, smaller and steeper, to remind you you're not part of the family upstairs. Somewhere above, the mistress dreams of Paris or pearls. You, on the other hand, dream of bread that's not stale. Fair trade, right? In the scullery, the cold hits harder. You strike the match. It sputters, hesitates, then flares alive. The orange light trembles over piles of dishes, boots, and buckets. Every surface gleams faintly with yesterday's labor. You start the fires in each grate, one by one. By the time the household wakes, the rooms will be warm, the tea ready. The illusion of effortless comfort restored, all because you did your job before the day began. The funny thing is, this part of your life is invisible. The masters think fires simply exist. The silver polishes itself. The beds make themselves. But you know better. You're the one who makes everything look easy, which is the hardest job of all. There's a saying whispered among maids. The perfect servant is the one who's never seen. Imagine a whole life dedicated to vanishing gracefully. Today, people complain when their phone doesn't recognize their face. You'd trade half your soul just to have someone notice you had one. You stoke the kitchen fire and feel your knuckles crack. The cook will come down soon, a hurricane in human form. But for now, it's just you and the rhythm of work. Scrape, scrub, stir, repeat. The sound is hypnotic, almost meditative, if you ignore the pain. Maybe that's how you cope. You turn noise into music, chores into rituals. Outside, the city starts to wake. You hear the distant clip of horses on cobblestones, the faint hiss of gas lamps being turned off. The fog crawls against the windows, thick as cream soup gone wrong. Somewhere, a milkman whistles. It's a lonely tune, but at least it means you're not the only one awake. You think about people in the future, maybe people like you, listening right now, wrapped in blankets and warmth. They'll have washing machines, dishwashers, electric lights. They'll complain about Mondays. And you smile, because if they ever tried your version of a Monday, they'd surrender before breakfast. By 5, the mistress's bell will ring. The sound echoes through the walls like judgment. You'll climb those stairs, balancing a basin of water that sloshes dangerously close to your wrist. You'll knock once, then glide in, silent, invisible, to open the curtains. Morning light spills over silk and lace. She groans, asks for tea. You curtsy, whisper, "Yes, ma'am," and retreat. Historians still argue about whether domestic servants were truly content or trapped. But the truth probably lies somewhere between a sigh and a shrug. You learn to take pride in the small things. A perfectly polished floor, a breakfast tray arranged just so. Maybe it's not freedom, but it's something. You catch your reflection in the silver teapot, warped, ghostly. For a second, you wonder who you'd be if you weren't her maid. If you could walk outside without anyone calling you girl. But then the bell rings again. And that thought gets tucked away with all the others you're not allowed to keep. By 7, the house is alive. Footsteps, chatter, orders flying through the air like arrows. You dodge them all, moving gracefully between chaos and calm. That's your art. You're the quiet heartbeat beneath the noise. Downstairs, the other servants gossip softly over tea gone cold. Someone laughs about the footman caught sneaking a sweet roll. You smile. Even in this relentless world, there's humor. There has to be. Otherwise, you'd forget how to be human. Did you know some wealthy homes actually installed bells that could ring in code? 1 chime for tea, 2 for wine, 3 for come now. You imagine a modern version, your phone buzzing with endless notifications from a boss who never sleeps. Maybe things haven't changed as much as people think. You carry clean linens through the corridor, the scent of lavender faint under the musk. You pause by a window, just for a breath, watching sunlight seep into the fog. For one brief moment, it's beautiful. Not your kind of beauty, maybe, but borrowed beauty. The kind you earn by surviving long enough to notice it. By 8, your back aches, your apron's already smudged, and the day hasn't truly begun. But as you pour tea for the lady of the house, she glances up and says softly, "Thank you." It's rare, almost shocking. And it reminds you why you endure this. Because even the smallest kindness can echo louder than a bell. You'll keep moving, one task after another, invisible but essential. And maybe tonight, when everyone else sleeps again, you'll pause beside the fire and let the warmth touch your hands, your small, secret victory. And as you listen to the faint hum of the city outside, you'll think not bitterly, but quietly, that maybe, just maybe, you're part of something bigger. Every polished spoon, every glowing hearth, every perfect morning starts with you, and that's the quiet power of the forgotten. The fire crackles behind you as the rest of the house yawns awake. And just when you think you might steal a sip of lukewarm tea, the next task greets you the floor. Ah, yes, the eternal battlefield between dirt and dignity. Welcome to the scrubbing hour. You kneel down, dip your hands into the bucket, and the water stings, cold enough to make your bones whisper complaints. No gloves, of course. Gloves are for ladies, or doctors, or murderers, trying to hide fingerprints, but not for you. You wring the rag, and it slaps against the floorboards like a small declaration of surrender. Victorian floors have personalities. You learn that quickly. Some creak in protest, some sulk in silence. The one under your hands right now feels judgmental, the kind that says, "You missed a spot," in the same tone your modern boss might use in an email marked just a gentle reminder. You scrub in circles. Small and precise, your reflection glimmering in the soap film. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Dip, ring, swipe, repeat. It's almost meditative, if meditation involved back pain and the faint smell of damp cabbage. Sometimes you imagine you're polishing time itself, wiping away yesterday's footprints. There's poetry in it, somewhere deep under the grime. Though honestly, poetry would probably quit this job after one morning shift. You move from plank to plank, fingers red, knuckles raw. The boards resist you at first. They always do. Every home has its silent rebellion, and here, it starts with the floors. You think about modern people and their robot vacuums, little buzzing beetles that clean for them. How luxurious. You wonder if they ever feel grateful, or if they just complain that the robot missed a corner. You smile quietly. Maybe it's good, in a strange way, to know what clean really means. To earn it, scrape by scrape. You can't buy that kind of satisfaction, though. If someone offered you a pair of rubber gloves and a heater, you'd probably sell the poetry for it in a heartbeat. The sun slips through the frosted windows now, pale and reluctant, brushing across the wet wood like a painter unsure of color. The dust sparkles for a moment, then vanishes. For that brief second, the room looks almost holy, a chapel to hard work. Behind you, the cook shuffles in, muttering about deliveries and spoiled butter. She steps right across your freshly scrubbed path. You flinch, but say nothing. You've learned that silence is the most valuable skill in the servant's trade. And knowing where the best crumbs fall after dinner, did you know? Some maids back then actually slept in the kitchen, near the stove, just to keep the fire going through the night. The pay was a few shillings a month, a straw mattress, and all the free soot you could inhale. It's romantic in the same way a toothache is romantic, only from a very great distance. Still, there's something grounding about this hour. The world upstairs runs on illusions, perfect surfaces, perfect order. Down here, it's raw, real, honest. You can't fake a clean floor. Either it shines, or it doesn't. The truth is simple, even if your spine disagrees. As you scrub, your mind wanders, maybe to the small letter tucked in your apron pocket. A letter from your sister, working at another house across town. She writes about her mistress's new French perfume, about the endless laundry, about missing home. You smile at her words, then realize you don't remember what home smells like anymore. Your thoughts drift to the world beyond these walls. London hums above, loud and unaware, carriages, vendors, laughter spilling from public houses. You imagine someone stepping over a puddle on the pavement, their boots gleaming. Maybe that shine started with hands like yours. Invisible hands. You wring out the rag one last time, the water dark and swirling, carrying away a bit of yesterday. The bucket feels heavier now, not just with dirt, but with everything you've given it, your effort, your exhaustion, your invisible pride. Sometimes, when you pause to catch your breath, you wonder if this work matters. Then you glance around at the gleaming boards, the light bouncing softly, the faint warmth returning to your fingers, and you know it does. Not in a grand, heroic way, but in the small, quiet way that holds the world together. Historians might debate whether servants were exploited or empowered by their work. Maybe both, maybe neither. What you feel isn't easily labeled. It's a mix of resentment and resilience, bitterness and strange peace. You don't clean because you're weak. You clean because someone has to, and because it's yours to do well. You rise slowly, knees aching, and look at your reflection in the polished floor. For a fleeting second, it looks like someone else, someone proud, someone steady. Then the illusion fades, and it's just you again. You pick up the bucket, ready to move to the next room. Another floor, another challenge, another silent conversation between you and wood. Upstairs, laughter ripples through the ceiling. The day has truly begun. You smile faintly, wipe your damp hands on your apron, and whisper to yourself, one day they'll have machines to do this, and they'll still find something to complain about. And with that, you carry on, steady, unseen. The quiet rhythm of a world that only exists because you keep it clean. By the time you finish scrubbing the last corner, the house smells faintly of coal smoke and soap and you can already sense what comes next. Breakfast, not your breakfast. Of course, theirs. The grand performance of the morning table. You are both the stagehand and the magician. The one who makes sausages appear without ever tasting them. You light the range again, the heat blooming against your cheeks, and crack the eggs one by one into a pan so heavy it could double as a weapon. Bacon sizzles, fat popping like applause in miniature. The aroma floats upward, curling through the cracks in the floorboards, waking the family more effectively than any bell ever could. You, however, are already awake enough to question all your life choices. You move quickly, toast to cut, tea to steep, porridge to stir until your wrist burns. You balance trays like a tightrope walker, arranging everything just so. The jam glinting like rubies, the butter soft but not melting, the napkin folded with military precision. The smallest mistake, missing spoon, a tea that's too strong could mean a lecture long, enough to be its own religion. Sometimes you imagine breakfast as theatre. The lady of the house descends like a queen to her throne. The children squabble. The master hides behind his newspaper. You stand in the wings, unseen, keeping the illusion alive. Every bite they take is a victory of your unseen effort, and somehow that's both funny and tragic. And when it's over, when the dishes are piled high and the family's garnu finally eat, not from plates, no, but from what's left behind. A crust of bread, a sliver of bacon gone cold, a spoonful of porridge that no one wanted. You eat it quickly, standing near the sink, because sitting is a luxury and the mice have already shown interest. Your breakfast companion. Tonight is a small grey creature with bold eyes and no respect for personal space. You flick a crumb toward him, and he accepts it like a gentleman. Congratulations, you've made a friend. He'll probably outlive you, too. It's strange, though. Even as you nibble on cold toast, you can't help but marvel at the feast you created. The golden eggs, the glistening marmalade, the coffee so fragrant it almost feels sinful. You think about how people in the future, people listening now, will have machines to make toast, kettles that whistle songs, even coffee pods that do all the work, and still they'll complain about being tired. You chuckle softly at that thought, the sound echoing against the kitchen walls. You're exhausted, sure, but there's something about surviving a morning like this that gives you a quiet pride. You faced boiling water, sharp knives, unpredictable children, and one very judgmental Catan, yet you endure a lesser-known truth. Many Victorian servants were required to taste food before it reached the table to ensure it wasn't poisoned. A noble job, if you don't mind risking your life for the flavor profile of oatmeal. You take a bite of leftover sausage and grin. Congratulations, you've just saved the family again. The scullery maid bursts in with a stack of plates nearly taller than herself. You both exchange that secret look, half fatigue, harsh solidarity that only people in the trenches of service understand. There's no need for words. The scrape of metal, the clatter of dishes, it all says enough. Above, laughter filters down through the floorboards. The family is content. The day has begun. You pause for just a second, fingers resting on the counter, listening. You'll never be part of their world, not really. But in a small, invisible way, you make it possible. Historians like to argue whether servants were exploited or simply part of the natural order. They rarely mention the quiet dignity of mornings like this, the kind of discipline that comes not from obedience, but from care. You may not own much, but you own your work. And that's something they'll never quite understand. You wipe your hands on your apron, straighten a chair that no one will notice is straightened, and glance once more at the crumbs on the plate. It's not much, but it's yours, and in a strange way, it's enough. Somewhere outside, the milkman whistles again. You find yourself humming along, your voice soft, almost content. It's ridiculous. You think how someone can be this tired and still find a kind of peace in the routine. But maybe that's what survival is. Turning exhaustion into music, hunger into humility, and routine into rhythm. You rinse the last cup, hang the towel neatly, and look out the kitchen window. The fog is lifting now, just a little, revealing a pale grey sky. The day will stretch long ahead, full of chores, voices, and bells. But for now, in this small moment, there's quiet. You breathe it in, slow and steady, the way you wish someone would teach the world to breathe, to pause between demands, to notice the warmth of the present moment. Because if you've learned anything down here, it's this: life doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. Sometimes, it's enough just to make something beautiful for someone else, even if you never get a taste. The bell rings again. A sharp, metallic chime that slices through the air like a command disguised as music. You freeze mid-step, fingers still wet from polishing silver. That sound doesn't just summon, it controls. Each ring means something different. 1 for the mistress, 2 for the master, 3 for the guests, who always seem to arrive uninvited and overstay by a century. You've learned the rhythm of servitude better than any dance. You dart up the staircase, careful not to let your heels clack against the polished floor. The house has rules, invisible ones carved deep into the woodwork, and one of them is silence. The sound of a servant, your supervisor once hissed, is an offense to polite ears. You almost laugh at that. Polite ears, apparently, only want to hear the rustle of silk and the soft clink of porcelain. Never the heartbeat that keeps the tea warm and the curtains drawn. The bell rings again. Higher this time, impatient. You imagine it's the same tone your phone makes when you ignore a notification for too long. Except this one doesn't buzz in your pocket. It echoes in your spine. You rush faster, passing portraits of people who never carried trays in their lives. Their painted eyes follow you with aristocratic boredom. You wonder if they ever imagined you'd be here, centuries later, running for their descendants' breakfast crumbs. In the drawing room, the mistress sits, her lace cuffs bright as frost. She doesn't look at you when she speaks. Few ever do. You pour her tea, steady-handed, though the tray trembles from the weight of invisible exhaustion. She says, "Not too hot," as if you control the laws of physics. You whisper, "Of course, ma'am," though the cup is steaming like your patience. The bell system, installed in most grand houses during the 19th century, was considered the height of domestic innovation. A tangle of wires connected to tiny levers that could summon servants from any room. Ingenious, yes, if you were the one doing the summoning. For everyone else, it was a network of nerves, a mechanical master. Historians like to call it the first step toward modern communication. You can't help but think, well, congratulations, humanity. We went from being chained to bells to being chained to smartphones. Progress tastes like déjà vu. You think about silence again. In this house, you learn to move like a ghost, gliding, invisible, efficient. If you make a sound, you apologize. If you breathe too loudly, you disappear. But now, centuries later, we live in a world that hums with noise, notifications, traffic, chatter, the clatter of coffee cups and keyboards. And yet, somehow, people still feel unheard. Irony has aged better than wine. As you carry a tray past the servants' hall, someone whispers that the master has new guests tonight. That means more work, more steps, more bells. You don't sigh. You've learned that sighs are wasted air. But deep inside, there's a small rebellion, the kind that hides behind calm faces. You picture smashing the bell one day, watching the brass crumble like brittle pride. Then you tuck that thought away neatly, right beside your dignity, and get back to polishing the silver. You pause for a second by the window. Outside, London breathes through its fog, soft and grey. Horses clip-clop past, carriages creak, a distant cry of morning papers floats in the air. You wonder if in the future people will remember this, not the wealth or the gowns, but the quiet footsteps that made luxury possible. Probably not. History has a habit of forgetting those who held the tray instead of the title. But maybe, just maybe, someone listening right now will remember. The bell rings again. You don't move this time. You let it echo once, twice. The sound fills the room like an impatient heartbeat. You take a slow breath in, out, and imagine ignoring it forever. Imagine the silence that follows, a silence owned, not imposed. Then reality returns. You pick up the tray and head toward the sound. Still, the fantasy lingers. A quiet act of defiance, as subtle as the twitch of a smile. It's strange, isn't it? How even now, in a world without bells and lords, you can still hear the echo. Every unread email, every ping from a group chat, every task list waiting on your desk, they all ring in their own way. The same call, different century. The same weight, dressed up in new technology. And still, you run. Maybe tonight, when you put down your phone and let the world ring unanswered for once, you'll feel it. The strange sweetness of freedom. The house might not be Victorian anymore, but the habit of hurrying still is. The bell rings again. You smile this time. Not because it calls you, but because you know you could choose not to go. And that, dear listener, is the quiet revolution no bell can command. The silver room glows faintly in the half-light, a quiet kingdom of spoons, knives, and whispered scandal. You crouch there, cloth in hand, polishing what feels like the 100th fork, each one a tiny mirror reflecting your tired face. Every stroke must shine, because in this house, dull silver means dull servants. You've learned that the gentry may forgive a broken heart, but never a streaky. Teaspoon, the air smells faintly of polish and secrets. You're not supposed to listen, of course. Servants are meant to have ears only for commands, yet sound travels like gossip, soft, sticky, impossible to stop. Through the thin oak door, the voices drift from the dining room, syrupy and dangerous. Did you hear about Lady H? One whispers, Her carriage overturned, and she was found in the company of a gentleman not her husband. You nearly drop the sugar tongs. This is the part no etiquette book mentions, that while you scrub the silver, you polish the truth bear. It's a kind of archaeology. Only the fossils are reputations. You learn who owes who money, who's secretly meeting in Hyde Park at dawn, who pretends to faint just to escape a dull dinner. And you, invisible in your apron, know all of it. Yet you can't tell a soul in another life, perhaps the one with Wi-Fi and take-out coffee. You might record these confessions as a podcast. Whispered scandals, tales from the silver room, millions of listens, ad sponsorships. But here, your only audience is the silverware, gleaming silently like a row of judgmental eyes. You turn a serving tray toward the window, and it catches the daylight like a small sun. You imagine your reflection stepping out of it, free, curious, maybe even mischievous. But the bell cord trembles on the wall, and your moment of rebellion dissolves. Another call, another command. You sigh, set the tray down gently, and hurry off before your absence is noticed. In this world, hesitation is the first sin. Historians still debate whether servants like you ever truly kept their master's secrets. Some say gossip trickled downstairs as naturally as dust fell from the chandeliers. Others insist the staff were vaults of discretion, sealed by fear, not loyalty. Either way, the truth survived, polished smooth by years of silence. You return later with a fresh cloth, pretending nothing happened. The silver seems smug, almost smirking, as if it knows exactly what you heard. It's funny how objects remember. Centuries later, that same set of cutlery might sit in a museum display, labeled Victorian dining elegance. The sign won't mention that one maid nearly lost her position because she giggled at a duke's affair. No plaque for you, only fingerprints that history quietly buffed away. The rhythm of your hand returns. Rub, twist, shine, breathe. You hum softly, though music isn't allowed. Your mind drifts. If someone from the future were watching, they might say you look peaceful. But peace isn't the same as stillness. Inside, your thoughts sparkle, brighter than all the silver in London. Outside, carriages clatter, and somewhere, someone is sipping tea without thinking who polished the cup. That's the invisible choreography of your life, to prepare the luxury that others never question. You start to wonder how many things today are built the same way. The smooth screens, the clean tables, the effortless mornings. Maybe every convenience hides its own silent servant. A soft laugh escapes you, barely a breath. You catch yourself. Laughter in the silver room feels like rebellion. You press your lips together, listening to the ticking of the clock, the heartbeat of duty. The truth is, even now, most people don't see the hands behind the shine. You pick up one last spoon, your reflection warped in its curve. You've seen too much, you whisper, and for a second it feels like the spoon might whisper back. The silver knows your secrets, to how you dream of sleeping past sunrise, of sitting down at a table without waiting to be told. And yet, despite the exhaustion, despite the quiet ache in your spine, there's a strange pride in this ritual. You bring order to chaos. You make beauty happen, one gleam at a time. That's something even the finest guests can't claim. As you place the last piece back in its velvet drawer, the world outside feels distant, unreal. You stretch your fingers, sore but satisfied. Maybe no one will thank you, but that's all right. The silver glows, and for now, that's proof enough that you existed. And when you look at your own reflection, faint, curved, imperfect, you realize something the masters never will. Sometimes, the ones who serve understand the world far better than those who dine, because the truth, like silver, always finds a way to shine through the polished dot. The mirror never lies, but it does know how to flatter. You stand behind your mistress, brush in hand, watching her reflection instead of her face. It's safer that way. The mirror holds her moods before she speaks them, the twitch of an eyebrow, the tightness around her lips, the sigh she hides beneath perfume and pearls. You can almost smell her feelings before she feels them. The scent of rosewater clings to her hair, but beneath it lurks something sharper, jealousy, exhaustion, maybe fear. You've learned to recognize that, too, the way others read tea leaves. You draw the brush gently through her hair, slow and rhythmic. The bristles whispering secrets neither of you will repeat. Not too hard, she says softly. You nod, though she's said it every morning for the last 5 years. Her voice trembles, not from anger, but from uncertainty. She's not the woman in the painting downstairs, the one frozen forever at 22, glowing, confident, adored. She's human now. And that's a dangerous thing to be when one's entire existence is meant to look effortless. Sometimes you wonder if she envies you. The freedom to move, unseen. To walk through the house without anyone judging the turn of your shoulders or the tilt of your chin. Then again, freedom is a fragile illusion when your entire day depends on someone else's mood. Historians still argue whether Victorian mistresses truly ruled their homes or were prisoners inside them. Maybe both were true. Power wrapped in lace, captivity draped in silk. You can see it now, in the way her hands grip the vanity, in the faint tremor of her rings as she asks, "Do you think I look tired?" You answer as you always do, gently, "No, ma'am. You look radiant." The lie slides out as easily as the brush glides through her hair. You're not deceiving her, not really. You're performing the same ritual as everyone else in this house, protecting a fragile peace with small, polite falsehoods. The mirror, though it sees everything, it sees her look away when her husband enters the room. It sees the letters she hides in the drawer you're never meant to open. It sees your reflection too, the quiet witness to every confession left unsaid. The silvered glass holds 100 truths that neither of you dare speak aloud. Sometimes, while she adjusts her necklace, you catch your own reflection beside hers. Two women from different worlds, trapped by the same expectations. One must appear perfect. The other must pretend not to exist. You both succeed too well. It's funny, really. In the modern world, everyone carries a little mirror in their pocket, a phone screen. You scroll through faces instead of brushing hair, but the ritual's the same. People still stare into glass, asking if they look beautiful, still chasing approval from an invisible audience. The filters are just newer, the loneliness the same vintage. Your mistress sighs as she reaches for her earrings. He's late again. You murmur something neutral, something safe. Her eyes flick toward the window, not watching for him, but for herself reflected in the glass. She looks so small in that moment, a woman wrapped in velvet but starved of warmth. And for the first time, you almost pity her. You think about the world outside this gilded room, the markets, the alleys, the other maids whispering over basins of cold water. You think about how envy trickles both ways. The poor wanting silk, the rich craving peace. If anyone ever swapped lives, Both would probably demand a refund by sundown, as you braid the final strand. Her hand rises to touch yours, not unkindly, just absent-mindedly, as if she's forgotten that her comfort depends on your steadiness. That tiny contact feels almost revolutionary. For a second, mistress and maid are two women breathing the same tired air, trapped in the same fragile century. You smooth her hair, step back, and the mirror swallows you both whole. She smiles faintly at herself, not at you, and says, "That will be all." Her tone carries the delicate exhaustion of someone who hasn't been truly seen in years. You curtsy and retreat, your reflection shrinking behind her like smoke. As the door closes, you glimpse her still sitting there, studying her face in the glass, as if searching for the woman she once was. Later, in your small attic room, you'll look into a cracked bit of mirror propped on the windowsill. The silver has peeled away in patches, distorting your face into ripples of light. Still, it feels more honest than the one downstairs. You smile at your own reflection, faintly proud you may not have jewels. But your peace doesn't depend on a stranger's opinion, and somewhere deep down, you realize something your mistress never will. Sometimes, the truest luxury is not to be seen at all. Sunday arrives like a sigh. You wake without the bell, without the footsteps overhead, without someone shouting your name through the floorboards. For a moment, you lie there, unsure what to do with silence. It's almost suspicious, like when your phone stops buzzing and you think, surely something's gone wrong. But no, this is freedom, or at least the Victorian version of it. You dress in your best dress, which is only marginally better than your worst. The hem still carries the memory of yesterday's coal dust, and the fabric smells faintly of starch and endurance. You smooth it down, pin your hair, and step into the street, into the luxury of belonging to yourself for one whole day. London greets you with the kind of enthusiasm only a city can fake. The air is thick with smoke, horses clatter past, and somewhere a vendor is yelling about oranges that haven't seen an actual orchard in months. Still, you breathe it in, the soot, the bread, the possibility. For a maid, that mix is perfume. You walk slower than usual, savoring the rhythm of your own footsteps. No trays, no bells, no orders echoing down hallways. Just you, the cobblestones, and the faint ache in your feet. A reminder that even freedom has its calluses around you. Other maids do the same little dance of escape, one clutching her shawl, another holding hands with a young man who looks like he borrowed confidence from a pub mirror. Laughter spills into the fog. For a few hours, you all get to pretend. You're not servants. You're women, people with choices, with afternoons to waste. You pass shop windows filled with things that seem made for someone else's life hats that could pay your wages for a month. Gloves so white they practically hiss at the sight of your hands. You don't envy them, exactly. You just wonder what it would feel like to walk inside, touch something without being told to clean it. There's a bakery on the corner, its windows fogged with warmth. You spend 5 minutes pretending to decide whether to go in, even though you've already counted your coins twice and know exactly how this ends. Still, you step inside. The air smells like heaven had an oven. You buy the smallest bun, the kind that disappears in 2 bites, and eat it slowly by the window. The taste is more than sugar. It's defiance, soft and fleeting. You catch your reflection in the glass again. Not the mistress's mirror this time, just the city itself looking back. You look tired but alive, worn but free. For a second, you smile at yourself, and it feels oddly rebellious. Freedom, you realize, isn't about what you can buy or where you can go. It's about being able to pause without being punished, to sit still without hearing your name barked across a corridor. It's about breathing without permission. Some historians debate whether Victorian maids really enjoyed their Sundays or merely endured them. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, between exhaustion and joy. Between dreaming and dozing on park benches, you find a bench yourself. One leg shorter than the others, wobbling like your sense of purpose. You sit anyway. The park is full of families, men in bowler hats, women in wide skirts, children dressed like miniature adults. You watch them feed ducks with the careless grace of people who've never scrubbed a floor for a living. A little girl drops her biscuit and looks horrified. You almost laugh. You've cleaned up bigger disasters before breakfast. Her mother lifts her, kisses her forehead, and the girl forgets the tragedy instantly. You look away because sometimes watching tenderness hurts more than labor. A breeze picks up, carrying the smell of wet grass and coal smoke. You close your eyes, tilt your head back, and pretend it's the ocean. If you listen hard enough, the sound of distant carriages almost becomes waves. Maybe that's the secret to surviving this life. You don't need escape, just imagination sturdy enough to fake it. When you open your eyes, the sun has started to lean westward. The other maids are drifting back toward the big houses, laughter fading with each step. You rise too, brushing crumbs from your skirt. Your shoes are soaked through, your feet sore, but your heart feels oddly steady. You take one last look at the open sky, then turn toward the servants' entrance, back to the house that never sleeps, back to bells and brushes and whispers. But you carry something with you this time, a quiet proof that the world outside still exists, that for one day you walked through it on your own terms. Funny thing about freedom, it's rarely comfortable. It pinches, it blisters, it costs you a pair of shoes. But even a small dose of it can make all the difference, like fresh air sneaking into a closed room, reminding you there's more to life than the walls that hold you. And as you step back into the narrow hallway, the air heavy with soap and supper, you whisper to yourself, a promise only you will ever hear. Next Sunday, I'll walk farther. Night falls thick and heavy, the kind of dark that feels padded, soft, secretive, slightly damp. The house above has gone still, its fine rooms resting like creatures in hibernation. Down here, below stairs, you and the others become human again. Voices loosen, laughter leaks out, and for the first time all day, no one's pretending to be invisible. A single oil lamp burns in the corner, its flame wobbling as if it too is gossiping. Someone starts talking about the ghost. There's always a ghost, isn't there? Every old house comes with one, like bad plumbing or a creaky stair. Supposedly, this one's a lady who died a century ago, waiting for her lover to return from sea. Or maybe it was a butler who hanged himself after dropping the family silver. Depends on who's telling the story and how many hours of scrubbing they've done that day. You listen while polishing a candlestick, pretending not to care, though your ears are very much awake. The scullery maid swears she's heard footsteps in the pantry when no one's there. The cook insists she's seen a shadow move across the larder door, tall and thin as regret. Someone jokes that maybe it's just one of you walking in your sleep, still working even in dreams. Everyone laughs, nervously. You think of the countless nights you've moved through these corridors half awake, candle in hand, the air so cold it bites. Maybe that's all ghosts are, the leftovers of people too tired to stop. A sigh caught between centuries. Historians debate whether servants really believed in hauntings or simply needed them. Little stories to soften the edges of endless work. Because belief, even in nonsense, makes the night shorter. Fear gives shape to exhaustion. And besides, when the whole world treats you like you're invisible, the idea that a ghost might actually notice you feels oddly comforting. The kitchen clock ticks, steady and stubborn. You take another sip of weak tea, the unofficial currency of survival. The warmth spreads just enough to make you brave. You tell your own story about how last week, while carrying laundry to the attic, you felt a cold hand brush your shoulder. The others gasp. You don't tell them the truth, that it was probably a draft through a broken window. A little mystery never hurt anyone, and tonight, you're the star of the show. Someone starts humming a hymn, half forgotten, soft as dust. The sound fills the room like smoke, rising, curling. The youngest maid pulls her blanket tighter, her eyes wide. She whispers that she's afraid to go to bed alone. You tell her not to worry. The ghosts only haunt those who forget to thank the house for its shelter. It's nonsense, but it makes her smile. You glance around at the others' faces lit by firelight, lined with fatigue, yet strangely alive. These are the people who see you, who laugh when your apron catches fire, who share crumbs and secrets and stolen moments of rest. The world upstairs may never remember your names, but here, in the warm dark, you are part of something that feels like belonging. It's funny, you think. In modern times, people talk about ghosting, disappearing from messages, slipping away from digital conversations without a word. It's the same thing, really. People vanish all the time, just in quieter, more polite ways. Back then, they faded into walls. Now, they fade into Wi-Fi. Either way, someone's always left, staring into the dark, wondering what went wrong. You lean back, close your eyes, and let the rhythm of the voices wash over you. Stories overlap, laughter softens, someone yawns. The ghost talk fades into small, comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after shared fear, the strange intimacy of surviving another day outside. The wind brushes the windows, and for a moment, it sounds like breathing. The house itself exhales a long, tired sigh. You almost answer back, not with words, but with the quiet understanding that you, too, are made of memories and dust and waiting. Maybe ghosts aren't trapped souls. Maybe they're the echoes of routines too deep to die. Someone sweeping the same corner every night. Someone whispering goodnight to a room that never listens. If that's true, then one day, when this house is gone, someone might still hear you, your laughter, your footsteps, your life stitched into the floorboards. You smile at that thought, set down your cup, and blow out the lamp. The dark folds over you like a blanket, soft and humming. Somewhere above, a floorboard creaks. Or maybe it's just the house dreaming. Either way, you whisper goodnight to no one and everyone at once. And as sleep crawls in, you think if ghosts do exist, maybe they're just trying to rest too. The last of the guests have gone, and the echo of laughter lingers like perfume that refuses to leave. You stand at the edge of the dining room, broom in hand. Surrounded by the aftermath of celebration, candle wax melted into elegant puddles, crumbs of cake fallen like tiny snowflakes of exhaustion, and the faint trace of spilled champagne glimmering in the candlelight. The city outside is asleep, but you are not. You, dear invisible keeper of order, remain to restore the illusion that nothing ever happened. The silver clinks softly as you gather plates, a delicate symphony for an audience of one. Every spoon reflects your face in miniature, warped and weary. Sometimes you catch yourself wondering if the reflection looks older than you are, or if the house itself ages you. The mirrors of the rich always tell the truth, just not to them. It's funny. You think how people toast to freedom while you sweep up its crumbs. The gentleman spoke tonight about progress, about the great march of civilization, all while their napkins were stained with claret and carelessness. One even said servants are lucky, spared from the burden of ambition. You almost laughed. Almost, because in truth, ambition is the one thing you can't afford to lose. Even when your hands are red from polishing their silver dreams, the night stretches longer when you're tired, doesn't it? The clock ticks in mockery, each sound a reminder that your rest is rationed. You light another candle, its flame trembling like your patience. They say the quiet of midnight cleanses the soul. Maybe so, though in your case, it mostly cleans the carpet. You find lipstick marks on the rim of a glass, not the mistress's shade. You hesitate, holding it in the dim light, then wipe it clean. No trace remains, at least none that the morning sun will see. It's strange how scandal leaves no stain when scrubbed by the right hands. The walls of this house have seen more secrets than a confessional. And you, dear listener, are the silent priest. There's a sweetness in the solitude, though. No eyes watching, no orders echoing down the hall. Just you, the hush of the house, and the occasional creak that may or may not be the ghost of a former maid still clocking in. The older servants swear they've seen her, a blur of grey skirts, carrying a tray that never empties. You laugh quietly, though part of you believes it. After all, how do you know you're not already one of them, haunting the same corridors night after night, unseen but indispensable? You pause by the window. Outside, fog curls over the cobblestones like a cat settling in for sleep. Somewhere, far away, a bell tolls, a lonely sound that reminds you of time's indifference. Tomorrow morning, someone will open these curtains, inhale the fresh air, and never guess you stood here, breathing it in first. Tired but alive, you glance at the grand clock in the hall, its golden face staring back like a strict supervisor. 3 in the morning. Almost done. Almost. The word feels like hope and punishment at once. You think about how people today complain about staying up past midnight, scrolling their glowing rectangles, sipping tea that costs more than your weekly wage once did. At least, you muse, they have the choice to be tired. Historians, the lucky ones, with pens instead of rags, still debate whether servants of the era were content or crushed. You could tell them the truth if anyone cared to ask. Contentment, you'd whisper, was not joy but survival made graceful. You learned to find beauty in the rhythm of work, in the soft gleam of polished wood, in the small defiance of stealing one extra breath before obeying the next bell. And yet, you wonder what it must be like to live in a world where work ends when the clock says so, where closing time means freedom, not another floor to scrub. Still, even in this fatigue, you feel something rare, a quiet power in knowing that without you, this grand illusion would collapse. The laughter, the glitter, the illusion of perfection, it all depends on your unseen hands. You are the keeper of normalcy, the architect of the next morning's peace. You put away the last dish, and the silence deepens. For a moment, You allow yourself to lean against the wall, feeling the chill of it seep into your bones. The candlelight wavers, and your shadow stretches long and thin, the outline of someone who endured the day, and will rise again to endure another. If someone told you that one day people would pay to watch others clean for relaxation, you'd think it madness. Yet here we are, centuries later, finding comfort in the sound of cloth on wood, in the rhythm of repetitive work. Maybe it's because deep down, everyone wants a clean slate, a small order amid the chaos. Maybe that's what you've always been doing, restoring the world one tired breath at a time. You snuff out the candle. Smoke spirals upward, fading into the darkness. The house exhales with you, relieved for now. You tiptoe up the servants' stairs, the air cooler, your steps softer. Outside, dawn begins to tease the horizon, the faintest thread of light creeping through. Another day gone, another secret kept, another life quietly lived. You smile faintly. Perhaps freedom isn't always loud or bright. Sometimes it's just this, the moment you finally rest, knowing you've survived the night, and as your head touches the thin pillow, remember, in this modern world of endless noise and light, your quiet was once a luxury few could afford. So, tonight, close your eyes, let go of the clocks and the chores. The night is yours now. Sleep, invisible one. Sleep. The candle burns low, the flame a trembling heart in the dark. You sit beside it, elbows resting on the worn wood of the servants' table, watching how it leans, fights, flares, and fades again. It's like watching a soul bargain for a few more seconds of warmth. Each flicker whispers the same question you've been asking yourself all night. How much longer can one keep shining when there's almost nothing left to burn? The air smells of wax and ash, soft, bitter, familiar. Somewhere above, a clock strikes 4. The house sighs in its sleep, pipes groaning, beams settling, as if even the building itself is tired of pretending to be grand. You close your eyes and let the sound roll through you like a lullaby sung by ghosts. It's strange, isn't it, how light behaves? By day, candles are humble. By night, they become guardians. This one is your last companion before sleep. Its flame, small but loyal. You've learned that the richest people don't own the brightest lights, just the longest nights. The poor, in contrast, sleep early not out of virtue, but because darkness is cheaper. You cup your hand around the candle, as if your palm could protect it from time. The wax pools at the base, slow and stubborn, and you think of all the hours you've melted through doing the same, burning quietly, illuminating someone else's comfort. If people today could see you now, they'd call it mindfulness. You'd laugh if you had the energy. Back then, they simply called it exhaustion. Somewhere in the quiet, you hear the house creak again. Or is it the echo of memory? You can't tell anymore. The candlelight dances on the silverware you forgot to put away, casting little halos on the spoons, like the faintest blessings of the night. Funny, isn't it, how holiness hides in ordinary things? Wax, wood, reflection, rest, the small sacraments of survival. If you listen closely, beneath the hush, there's a faint rhythm, your heart beats. Slow, steady, deliberate. You notice it only when everything else stops demanding your attention. That's how peace works, really. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It slips in quietly when you finally stop moving. You let your head tilt back, gaze drifting toward the ceiling's dim patterns. You spent a lifetime watching light fade, and yet it never stops being beautiful. The final moments of a flame are the most honest, no longer performing, no longer reaching, just existing, bravely and briefly. Perhaps that's all any of us can do. Historians still debate whether servants found happiness in such simplicity. But maybe happiness was never the point. Maybe it was about endurance, about seeing beauty in repetition, about finding your reflection not in mirrors but in the calm after the storm. In that sense, the candle and you are kin, both small, both necessary, both destined to vanish quietly once your purpose is done. You reach for the candle holder and tilt it slightly, watching the flame bend toward its own shadow. That bend, that gentle surrender, reminds you of something deeply human. People today speak about burnout as if it's a modern affliction. You smile faintly at that. You've been burning out since before the word existed. The only difference is that now they can post about it. And yet, there's a strange grace in this kind of ending. The silence feels earned. The darkness feels deserved. You take one slow breath in, then out, and the flame shivers in rhythm with you. How curious that even in exhaustion, you're still sharing your breath with the world. Outside, dawn begins to tease the edge of the window. The first grey of morning presses softly against the glass, like a guest knocking politely. The candle's glow fades in answer, giving way to a paler, colder light. You watch as the two meet, fire and fog, warmth and waiting, and realize that every ending is just another beginning with better manners. If anyone ever told you that one day people would light candles not to see, but to relax, you'd think them foolish. But here we are, centuries later, people lighting scented wax just to remember how to breathe. Maybe that's the lesson hidden in your small, flickering world. The things you took for hardship were actually practice in stillness. You lean closer, whisper a silent thank you to the little flame, and blow gently. For a heartbeat, it fights to stay. Then darkness. A soft thread of smoke spirals upward, carrying with it all the day's exhaustion, all the quiet triumphs of survival. You watch it fade into the shadows until nothing remains but the faint warmth on your skin. And now, the world belongs to sleep. You stretch your aching fingers, feel the ache that proves you've lived, worked, endured. In the hush that follows, you find comfort not in grand dreams, but in the ordinary miracle of rest. Tomorrow will come, and the candles will burn again. But tonight, you are allowed to be still. Close your eyes. The light is gone, but the warmth lingers. Listen, that's your heart, still steady, still here. In this moment, you are the last flame of the night, and that is enough.